Welcome to KQEG and 7 River Sports. I'm your host, Terry Erickson. Each week, an inside look into sports, wellness, fitness. We're taking a break this week from coaches and players to talk about the entire wellness spectrum, something that all of us are very concerned about. And we're going to talk about emotional, spiritual, strength training. We're going to talk about nutrition. We're going to talk about everything. Our guests today, two esteemed physicians from the Mayo Health System, Dr. Paul Molling, internal medicine specialist, and Dr. Paul Jagim, exercise physiologist at the Mayo Health Care System. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, we'll start with, we started getting to know you kind of up close and personal. Of course, Paul's a friend of mine, a whole family, but a lot of our viewers probably is like, who's this Paul Molling? So share a little bit about you.
Yeah, well, obviously known Terry for a number of years. I spent time down to the Boys and Girls Club as I grew up. Again, local native, grew up in Onalaska, graduated '88 from Onalaska. Then I went on to University of Wisconsin La Crosse, finished up there with my major in chemistry and microbiology, then off to medical school, Iowa. When you start listing things that are important in life, where you want to end up in life, figured it was time to come home. And I've been back in the area for 23 years now, working as a family medicine physician. I also do a fair amount of administration in our organization, also for Mayo Clinic Health System.
Well, you come from a solid family, very good friends of ours. But let's go back a little bit further to, what was the kind of the inspiration for you to pursue medicine?
Well, I was always a science bug. I loved it. I got the niche. There were a number of teachers, actually. Now that my kids are 15 and 12, they're in our Onalaska school district. I'm so thankful for our teachers out there that were inspirational to me and helped me along and guide my career. Started probably when I was a sophomore in high school, coaching, or my coaches and the teachers there kind of led the way, and you quickly figured out that science, you liked it. I like taking care of patients. I like that interaction. So it just was a natural fit for me.
Well, and you have the personality, too, no question about it. But I just got to meet our next guest just a couple of weeks ago. And, by the way, he was on our halftime of the UWL game. And I attended a safety symposium. Awesome. We're going to talk about that later. But Dr. Paul Jagim, I'm not sure of where Paul came from, so let's hear a little bit about who you are.
So I actually grew up in Fargo, North Dakota. I graduated there, and I went to University of North Dakota for my undergraduate degree in exercise science, and then actually came to the University of Wisconsin La Crosse for a master's degree. So that was my first exposure to the Cooley region here. I kind of fell in love with the area. And so after that, I went down to Texas A&M. I got my PhD in exercise physiology and sport nutrition, and while I was there, I really got kind of interested in the research side of that field. Afterwards, I kind of hopped around with a few different positions at academic institutions. I did teach at UWL, so I was a faculty member there for several years. And while I was there, I actually got to work with a few of the physicians, Dr. Jake Erickson at Mayo in particular. So we worked together on a few projects and kind of developed a good working relationship, and that actually kind of led into my job getting hired on there about a year ago. Coming up in December, and so my current role there is the director of sports medicine research. So I'm thankful that I'm in a position to kind of take my passion of looking at different research projects in the realm of sports medicine, sports science, and kind of be able to make a full-time career out of that.
And again, clarify Dr. Andrew Jagim and Paul Molling, but so you must have been involved in sports when you were young too.
I was, yeah. I played all kinds of different sports growing up. Fortunately, I also got hurt quite a bit, which is kind of how I got interested in this career in the first place. I spent a lot of time in physical therapy, so that was initially what I thought I wanted to do, and then I kind of discovered exercise science and strength conditioning and sport nutrition, and at the time I didn't really know that was even kind of a field of study and you could potentially make a career out of it. So once I kind of discovered that, it was an easy switch for me, and I've kind of never looked back since. So I've always been interested in how we can take athletes and manipulate training, sleep, nutrition strategies and make them better athletes and hopefully prevent injuries, improve recovery, and kind of help them get to the next level.
And Paul, you see a lot of people, varying degrees of health and wellness and so on. Just for our viewers, what's your overall feeling of the general health and wellness of the society we live in?
Well, I think in Southwest Wisconsin here, we're very fortunate to have the academic centers and the medical centers that we do have. I mean, we're blessed to have 3 colleges in town, plus the St. Mary's, Winona Health, Winona University. Definitely benefits us. Is there room to improve the health in this community? Sure. But overall, it's great. Obesity is an ever-growing factor here in our community. I think there's both organizations are working on to help solve that solution. But I think one of the critical pieces is why we're here today, and that is, how do we protect our athletes from injury? And that's, I mean, Dr. Jagim, I was very fortunate to be able to recruit him back to the community to assist and develop these programs we can do here locally.
Well, and that's a good segue into the, I mentioned the first annual sports symposium. We talking about a variety of things, and we're going to get into that. But when you see patients come to you that have injuries, young athletes, what's the most common injury?
I would say probably, I mean, number one injury patients come to primary care physicians for in general are back injuries. But you know, with the impact sports, definitely you see a lot of knee injuries, lower limb injuries, concussions are a major factor. But overall, number one would be low back injuries or back injuries.
And we talked about that symposium, which I attended at the Radisson prior to UWL's game. You were a catalyst, of course, in putting that together. And a question for both of you: was that a discussion you had? You did some research, and how did that develop?
Well, first and foremost, I'm blessed to lead great teams, and so in reference to that, what happened is that I think it was June, I believe it was, wasn't it, Dr. Jagim, that it was one of those weeks in clinic where you saw a number of young student athletes get injured, and culminated in Shane Schmeling, who's the head varsity coach in Onalaska. Devin, his daughter, sustained a horrific injury at University of Wisconsin La Crosse doing the camps that they run. And I happened to step into that day and was providing medical care there. I walked out of the emergency room that evening after the orthopedic surgeon took her to surgery and caught Dr. Jagim the first thing in the morning say, you know what, how can we prevent these kids from getting injured? And there's got to be something in our community. And again, this is Dr. Jagim's forte. I mean, this is where he accelerates. And so we brought that team together. Feel free to ad-lib in here, Dr. Jagim, but I brought Dr. Erickson together, our athletic trainers together. Really, we just sat down at the table, penciled this out, and said, can we make this happen? We then invited some influence from some of the coaches, athletic directors around the area, who we said, can we make this happen? It happened very quick. Within 2 months, we planned that event. Again, the first annual, overall, I think it was very successful.
It was, and Dr. Jagim was a speaker and part of the planning team and so on. So you talked about a variety of things, and there were many speakers too, an array of speakers that just captivated everybody's attention.
Yeah, and we kind of wanted to do that intentionally to provide kind of a wide array of information and resources for parents and coaches and athletes in attendance that day to just kind of learn and bring more awareness about this youth sports injuries topic as a whole. It's kind of a hot topic within sports right now. A lot of buzz around sports specialization, overuse injuries, and so we wanted to just kind of bring that to the forefront and just kind of educate people on some of the risks, some of the kind of do's and don'ts to hopefully avoid some of those injuries, and then just what are some best practices, whether it be from a nutritional standpoint. Joel Lutke, the head athletic trainer at UWL, did a nice job on kind of discussing some strength conditioning practices and some movement mechanics that we can instill in young athletes that hopefully they can kind of bring with them throughout their young career to just promote, again, better movement mechanics, and hopefully that translates to better performance and a reduction in risk of injuries.
We're going to explore some of that too, but to kick off the morning, you had a friend of mine, Coach Malachek, talking about how to get to I call it competitive greatness. Doesn't mean you win games or anything, but he titled it From Good to Great, similar, but that was a great way to start the day, and a lot of people are interested in that pyramid. How do you get from the level of mediocrity, how do you get from a level of being somewhat good to being great? And that was a great way to kick it off.
It was. Coach Malachek was, I think, one of the perfect speakers to have in that position for those that have the good fortune knowing him. He's a very dynamic guy. He cares a lot about his athletes, cares a lot about his family. He has some young athletes of his own in his household, and I think he's kind of developed that perfect system to really get the most out of a young athlete, both on the athletic side and academic side, and kind of teach them to be good young men. Well, and it's obvious the way he coaches.
Yeah, and it's obvious with all speakers that were passionate about this subject, passionate about the whole wellness package. That passion was shown through every speaker and through, Paul, your planning too. Let's just jump forward real quick before we take a break. It was so well received, and the speakers are so good. Is there a future to this?
Absolutely. Right after this meeting, we're pulling the team back together. We're all going to sit down and talk about everything from time of day to the time of year. And then we solicited responses from individuals trying to figure out what are we doing right, what are we doing wrong, and we've culminated all that information. Overall, very successful program, really, really positive feedback. Mm-hmm. Not only just from that day and event, but Dr. Jagim and I spent time on the road promoting this, meeting with a number of the athletic directors around the community, a number of other businesses that have dancers or gymnasts, and they're just like, feed us, give us more. We want more. What can we do? A lot of great ideas have come out of that.
On the other side of this break, we're going to explore that. We're going to break it down to nutrition, strength training, all those kinds of things. So make sure our viewers stay with us. We're going to come back after this break. More here on Seven Rivers Sports.
With our busy lives, it's a comfort to know that we can still remember loved ones in a traditional way with a monument. Lewiston Monuments in Lewiston, Minnesota has been helping families purchase a monument for over 4 generations. You'll find a large selection of beautiful granite, marble, and bronze monuments, all at competitive prices. And they're a full-service company, so they also do straightening, cleaning, and repair of monuments. Stop in or call for a no-obligation consultation, or visit lewistonmonument.com for more information.
At Schneider Heating and Air Conditioning, we have assembled a championship team
who listens to what your needs are.
We install carrier comfort systems that improve the comfort, efficiency, and the air quality of your home and workplace.
We serve you with highly trained technicians who are prompt, friendly, and honest.
For Gold Star treatment, turn to the experts, Carrier and Schneider Heating and Air Conditioning.
Schneider Heating and Air Conditioning, your comfort is our business.
Welcome back to Seven Rivers Sports, a very special show this week here as we talk about emotional and physical wellness and all those kind of things. As the sports symposium just concluded, and very important topics, Dr. Paul Molling and Dr. Andrew Jagim. Well, we talked before we went on break about this being so well received. How are you going to take this to the broad public, including middle school and high school students?
Well, I think that's, as we indicated, it was a first annual, so our objective is to keep hammering this home, come back next year with a bigger, better program than what we did this year. Communication is absolutely crucial. We're going to be out there talking. A number of spin-offs have already occurred from what we have done, incorporating even with the Boys and Girls Club. Dr. Jagim's going to engage with helping them write some of their curriculum. We've also talked to these athletic directors and also some of the organizations and dance teams and gymnastic teams about how we can help their young athletes directly also. So, yeah, more to come, Terry. I would love to tell you exactly how we're going to key that and make that happen, but it will happen.
You know, nutrition for an athlete when I was young wasn't even talked about. And still for a lot of people in this country, authors say it's a garbage dump syndrome that we live in a NASCAR lifestyle where sometimes you eat the wrong kinds of foods and so on. But nutrition for reaching that sort of pyramid to the top of that competitive greatness. Talk about that a little.
Yeah, I try to get it across to athletes that it's really an essential part of your training program as an athlete. And if you kind of think of it as a pie chart, I kind of split it up into thirds, and you have the training side of it, you have nutrition, and then you kind of have your sleep and recovery. And you really need to kind of focus on all 3 of those areas to really get the most out of yourself as an athlete and kind of maximize performance. And then with that, if we kind of look at the injury side of it, it can also play a big role in reducing your risk of injuries.
A lot of people, live by this badge of honor, which is called sleep deprivation. badge of honor, meaning you only sleep 3-4 hours because you got so much packed into your day, and that is detrimental to our overall health. And there are articles written about the sleep deprivation about young people, and that's something that you're addressing?
Yeah, it is, and like you said, it's essential for anyone, probably even more important for a young athlete who's still kind of going through that growth and development phase. Their brain is still kind of growing and developing, so sleep is that time for a lot of that growth and development to actually occur, and that time where our body gets the rest and recovery that it needs. So when you deprive the body of that, you're going to start seeing shortcomings in all those different areas. And unfortunately, you know, that badge of honor, like you said, we see that even in younger kids as well. And sports, unfortunately, sometimes may not help in that situation where they're busy with practices, camps, games that run late into the night if they're traveling, and or if we see it on the front end of the day, they're up at 5, 6 with weights and practices in the morning. So sometimes it can be really challenging for that athlete to find that balance, but it really is important that they do find a way to try to get at minimum 7 hours, but really we'd like to see them closer in the 8 to 9, even upwards to 10 hours of sleep a night if they could.
You know, you see people, Dr. Molling, that have some mental health issues, and it seems like it's on the rise, and there's varying reasons and components and so on, issues that young people face, and adults too. One of them is body imaging. One of them is, you know, young people are not comfortable with who they are. How do you address that?
Well, I think from us as parents, coaches to teachers, we need to keep an eye on our kids. There's the ever pressure of that body imaging. And again, it's just not girls. One of the, used to be young ladies or adolescent women that we'd see that in, but now it's happening in males. And I've had a number of young males that has happened to, and you have to pay attention as a parent. If you're seeing the behaviors, eating behaviors, rapid weight loss, mood disorder, be alert. Bring it to the attention, because the sooner you act on it, the better off that individual's going to be.
Sometimes it's not easy to see that. That's the difficulty.
Yeah, well, they're very good at hiding it, if that's what you're alluding to. And kids can do that, or young adolescents particularly. But that's why you bring your kid in for well examinations, and as a provider, we need to continue asking the right questions, looking at their weights, looking at their growth. If you see drop-offs in their growth or rapid weight loss, it opens up that conversation. And
that's the great thing about Mayo, because you can refer them to other specialists. You can bring other people in for consultation and so on. I know the connection with UWL, Dr. Jagim, is something special. Talk about current, ongoing, related research projects.
Yeah, so I was fortunate during my time there. I developed a lot of good relationships with not only the faculty within kind of the health sciences area, but also with a lot of the coaches, athletic trainers, and kind of medical staff there. So I got to know them and kind of would work with some of the different teams, and we worked together on a variety of research project itself. And I like to design research projects that kind of provide mutually beneficial information. So as a scientist and researcher, I get to answer some of the research questions I have, but then also along the way, that coach, athletic trainer, or hopefully the athletes as well, are also kind of getting valuable information along the way. So an example of one of those, we have a project going with the women's soccer team over there where we have a GPS and heart rate based monitoring system that they wear during practices and games. So that gives them live, real-time feedback on what their heart rate is, how fast they're running, distances that they've covered, calorie expenditure. So that information can be, again, beneficial to the coach to potentially make some coaching decisions that day or throughout the season. And then I'm able to kind of look at different trends that might emerge throughout the season. Our higher training loads associated with injuries or poor performance and those types of things.
So there's a lot more to come too, right?
There is,
well,
yeah.
That research that Dr. Jagim is doing is direct benefit to this community and to our athletes.
How is that?
Just like you said, real live intel. Here's that information. Here's what's going on with your athlete. He's using it as a research project, but he can go to that coach and say, hey, this athlete's did this much activity. Look at her injury rate, or we need to do this. We need to increase caloric supplementation. One of the things we did even this summer was with the Aquinas basketball team. He put the monitors on. They burned 1,000 calories in about an hour. And that was their first or second sport of the day, and multiple had 3 or 4. you look at that caloric expenditure that they're doing, they got to put those calories back in, appropriate calories, to continue their sports endeavor. Because if you don't, eventually you're going to hit a shortcoming. Injury prevention, or injuries will happen, and or outcomes that are not what we're looking for.
So I read an article recently that the most traumatic thing that's happening to people nowadays, older people, is not car accidents and so on. It's falls, fall prone, which is based on strength and so on. Now you see with young people too, strength is one of the reasons that injuries occur. So for our viewers, parents watching and so on, when do you advise young people to get into strength training?
It kind of depends on how we define strength training. You know, sometimes people's minds instantly think Olympic weightlifters are big bodybuilders and things like that in the gym throwing around heavy weights, but strength training can be simple as body weight exercises, doing body weight squats, push-ups, different plyometric type exercises. And if we kind of go to that end of the spectrum, I really think almost as soon as that athlete starts to be playing sports, it's a pretty good idea to do some type of movement and strength training kind of along the way, because if you don't develop some of that baseline strength, you may not be strong enough to even withstand the demands of your sport. And so in weaker athletes who can't necessarily move well, they're at a much higher risk of some of those injuries early on. So it's good to develop that sound foundation and technique early on, and then you just kind of build upon that as you progress through higher levels of sport. And one of the things you alluded to earlier, that's something that's really important throughout the lifespan. And so having a good sense of strength to tolerate the demands of sport or help just maintain autonomy later in life are really, really important.
Step into the future. You're futuristic in the overall. First of all, I guess before we get in the last 2 minutes, are some countries ahead of us in this entire spectrum? Some countries in the world ahead of us?
I'll leave that to Dr. Jagim.
I would say some might be a little bit better at kind of promoting the holistic spectrum of wellness. I've seen other kind of European countries that maybe focus a little bit more on relaxation, taking long vacation, better maternity, paternity leave, those types of things. So I think a lot of those stress reduction techniques can certainly help promote maybe more of a holistic health style. In terms of the sports science and kind of athletic performance, I'd say we're probably right up there with the best. Some of the European countries and Australia might be a little bit better at integrating that amongst the kind of the research personnel and kind of the applied sports side of things. But in terms of kind of sports performance, I would say we're probably up there. Yeah, we've got some fancy technology that's fun to use.
But I have read articles, again, as we close the show, about this country being overstressed, and certainly that permeates down to younger people all the way up the ladder. But before we sign off, anything new happening at Mayo? Dr. Molling?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the sports med program, we started this endeavor about 5 years ago. The continuation of the program has occurred. One of the key players in this is Dr. Jagim. We have Dr. Jake Erickson, not your Jake Erickson, but the other Dr. Jake Erickson in town. We've brought 2 more primary care, non-orthopedic specialist sports med docs in. We've hired a number of ATs, and then we have also Dr. Scott Kuzma, who just came back from the Ohio State Buckeyes. He's a UWL grad too. He's an orthopedic surgery specialist specializing in sports injuries. So he's here. He's ready to go.
So you've taken the path least traveled, and Mayo is on the forefront of some of these issues. Which
and even all the way up to the Rochester level. If it's something that we can't handle, we call it tertiary. If we can't do that tertiary care here, we have foremost world experts sitting 60 minutes from here. So,
and you utilize them too.
Absolutely. Their ability to operate on or to do specialized surgeries is unbelievable.
Probably not too many universities in the country that have that kind of collaboration with the medical center?
Not a lot.
No. We're very fortunate. And as I stated, we have unbelievable education, unbelievable educated population here. We're very fortunate to have those universities, those colleges in this town.
Yeah, it certainly is something that we sometimes don't appreciate enough, but it's also a blessing to have 2 people like you, Dr. Molling, Dr. Jagim here on the show and in the community as we look at improving the overall condition of athletes and people in general. So I want to thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
We'll be back with some closing thoughts, and we're going to talk a little bit about basketball right after this.
At Schneider Heating and Air Conditioning, we have assembled a championship team
Who listens to what your needs are.
We install carrier comfort systems that improve the comfort, efficiency, and the air quality of your home and workplace.
We serve you with highly trained technicians who are prompt, friendly, and honest.
For Gold Star treatment, turn to the experts, Carrier and Schneider Heating and Air Conditioning.
Schneider Heating and Air Conditioning. Your comfort is our business.
When you're faced with the decision of selecting a monument to honor someone dear to you, call Lewiston Monuments for a no-obligation consultation. Lewiston Monument is a full-service monument company, serving families in Iowa, Minnesota, and Wisconsin for over 4 generations. You'll find beautiful granite, marble, and bronze memorials, all at competitive prices. Their experts can help you design the perfect and unique memorial. Lewiston Monument. Call today or on the web at lewistonmonument.com.
Art and I were in Onalaska on Tuesday for a non-conference game, the Luther Knights versus the Necedah Cardinals from the Scenic Bluffs Conference. Defense controlled the entire first half as neither team could find their offense. Both teams played a classic aggressive man-to-man defense, not allowing penetration or any good shots. Luther took a 19-9 lead into intermission. The pace picked up somewhat in the second half, with the Luther Knights controlling the inside play. 3 Knights scoring in double figures, with Cassie Warren along with Grace Mankey, 11 points, and freshman Hannah Motzke with 10 points. Senior Kyra Saylor led Seneca with 7 points. Both teams take a break for the Thanksgiving holiday. The 1-1 Knights travel to Cashton on Tuesday, December 3rd, while Necedah drops to 2-1, and they will travel to Royal on Friday, December 6th. Final, the Luther Knights 46, Necedah 23. I want to pause this holiday weekend too to wish you the best during the Thanksgiving holidays. We enjoy bringing the show to you. So that's it this week here on 7 Rivers Sports.